Good morning, folks. Thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us. We really appreciate you attending our webinar from a couple of weeks ago where we talked in general about considerations for technology for nonprofits. This morning I have Brendan Farrell and Sep uh, Senvia, and they're here to talk about Bill, and they can tell you more about their solution, but we want to thank them for joining us. And if you would please take time to put questions, any questions that you have, there's a Q&A button along the bottom of the Zoom panel. Please put your questions in there and we'll make sure we try our best to get them answered. All right, take it away, gentlemen.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tim. As Tim mentioned, we're from Bill. I'm the account manager and point of contact for Maynor. I've included Sep here, one of our solution consultants on the Bill side. So I'm going to hand things over to him. I know we have 45 minutes here, so I want to give him enough time to walk through the demo. We're going to cover the accounts payable first, and then we'll move over to the spend and expense side. If there's any questions, again, feel free to add them in the chat there.
All right, thank you, Brendan. Let me go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. And what we're going to be doing today is going over a four-step process. Step one, we'll be getting those documents into the inbox so we can start creating those bills. Step two, we'll then be writing up for approvals, and I'll be able to go over the different approval policies that you're able to create within Bill. Step three, we'll then be writing up for payments, and I'll be able to go over the different payment methods that we offer, as well as post-payment actions. And then the last step would be reconciliation. But before we jump into the inbox, I do like to go over the first page you'll be viewing. As soon as you click into a bill account, this will kind of give you a bird's eye view into the most recent transactions. So from here, we'll be able to keep track of any bills that are overdue or that are due within the next 7 days or 7 days plus. We'll also be able to give you a quick glance of any upcoming payments that are scheduled to be going out to the vendors, as well as any payments that have been processed in the last 30 days. We will also be providing you a bill approval queue, which will be broken down by approvers. That way you can keep track of how many bills are assigned to those approvers and how many days it's been since those bills have been approved. And we will be sending out automatic reminders to those approvers if they do have any outstanding bills on their end. And then the last thing would be our to-do list. Now, our to-do list is designed based on your user permissions. Since I'm an administrator and have full access to this account, I'll be able to keep track of any bills that have been denied, if any bills are ready to be paid, or if there's any documents in the inbox that still haven't been processed. So I'll be able to keep track of my daily Bill.com tasks using my to-do list, which I can also have an email to me directly. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and jump right into the inbox. First things first is we got to get those documents into the inbox so we can start creating those bills. Now, the preferred method would be to use the dedicated email address that's assigned to the inbox. So what we can do here is we can provide that to the vendors. Vendors can then just email those documents right in. If we already have an AP email address set up to receive those bills, and maybe we want to continue using that same AP email address, we can just create a forwarding rule and just forward those documents into the inbox as well. All bill accounts will have their own dedicated email address along with their own inbox. Now, for some of those vendors that are still sending in paper bills, you can scan them, upload them into the inbox. We can use the drag and drop feature. And then for those who are always on the go, never really have a chance to be in front of a computer or access to a scanner like myself, you can also use your mobile device. All you'll need to do is just log into the Bill.com app, take a picture of the physical document, which will then upload into the inbox within a matter of seconds. When it comes to working with the inbox, we do offer unlimited document storage, meaning you never have to worry about reaching any type of limit, which is another reason why a lot of our clients like to use it as a digital filing cabinet. So not only are you able to upload bills and invoices, you can upload W-9s, contracts, agreements, any important document, which you can store either at the vendor level, or we can go under documents, click folders, and this is where you can really start building out your own digital filing cabinet, right? You can create as many folders as you like. As soon as those documents are in the inbox, you can then start filing those away into one of these digital folders. And then if you ever need to review the document, you can just click on the folder. You can click on the document. From here, you can view it. You can even download it if you need to, but at least this way you don't have to worry about holding on to any more of those paper copies. Everything can be digitally stored within Bill. Now, as soon as those documents are uploaded into the inbox, our intelligent virtual assistant will then start taking over those documents. And the first thing that's going to do is going to look for any potential duplicates by taking the vendor name, the invoice number, and running it against the vendor record in bill. Now, if it does find a potential duplicate, it's going to first flag it as a duplicate. It's also going to be providing you a direct link to that existing bill. So from here, you can decide whether you want to delete this document, if you want to attach it to that existing bill, or if you simply want to file it away under the vendor or into a digital folder. Another great feature with our inbox is that you don't have to upload just one document at a time. You can actually upload a batch of documents. And our intelligent virtual assistant will be able to go through each one of those documents. It'll look for a vendor name, an invoice number. If they are for different vendors, it will separate them for you. And if there are any potential duplicates, it will also flag it as a duplicate bill. Because in the end, nobody likes to pay duplicate bills, right? All right. So what we're going to do here, we're going to pretend Asieta Design did some work for us. They went ahead and emailed us their invoice, right into our inbox. We're going to click on their invoice and we're going to click enter bill. As soon as we do that, our intelligent virtual assistant will then start taking some of that high-level information from the document, and it's going to start plugging that into the bill creation template. So as you can see here, plugged in the vendor name, invoice number, invoice date, the due date, as well as the total amount of the bill. There's going to be 3 other sections that are also going to be pre-populated for you. However, that information is actually not going to get pulled from the document. We're going to be using a different technology called Smart Data Entry. And what Smart Data Entry does, it actually goes back to the very last bill that was created for that specific vendor. And it's going to plug in the same bill description, those same line items, as well as assign those same approvers. So as you can see here, as soon as we clicked enter bill, I'd say 98% of the bill has already been pre-populated for you. So it really becomes more of a review process than a data entry process. And then the only time we're going to need to make manual adjustments here is if we're going to be working with multiple line items, we are going to need to break down those dollar amounts. But the best part of it, we don't even have to type it in. We can use our click to capture tool. All we need to do is go right into the invoice, highlight the dollar amount, click on it once to copy, and then click once again to paste. If we need to update the bill description, we can do exactly the same thing. Just highlight the information you would like to add from the invoice, click on it once to copy, and then click once again to paste. So in a matter of a few clicks, we were able to update the bill description. We were able to break down the dollar amounts for each one of our line items. And this bill is ready for the next step, which is routing it for approvals. Okay. Now, once the bill has been coded, next step is routing it for approvals. And we do offer 2 types of approvals. We do have the approval group as well as the individual approver. Now, the approval group does have an and/or functionality. For example, here we created a group that has 15 approvers. As soon as we click create bill, each one of those approvers will receive a notification letting them know that they've been assigned to a bill that needs to be reviewed and approved. However, only one approver would be required to approve the bill. So whoever gets to it first reviews it, approves it. We would then be removing it from everyone else's approval queue. And then if there is a second approver on that bill, we will be sending them a notification, letting them know it's their turn to review and approve the bill. Within each bill, we do have a note section. So if there's anything special going on with these bills, we can always leave notes. That way other approvers, administrators, or anyone who has access to review the bill will be able to see those notes. But one of my favorite features here is that you can also communicate with your team members directly through bill. For example, here I can tag Alan. I can leave Alan a note. As soon as I click create bill, Alan will then receive a notification where he would be able to review that note. But then if he wants to reply to it, it's going to bring him right back into this bill. So going forward, all that communication will be kept within bill, and any notes that are entered in bill cannot be edited, cannot be deleted, which is great for audit purposes. So down the road, we can always come back and review those notes, which will be date and time stamped as well. Now, when it comes time to assigning approvers, we do have a few different ways. First one is, as we're reviewing and creating the bill, we can just click on the drop down, and from here, we can start selecting approval groups, individuals. We can also set up default approvers. So that way, going forward, anytime a new bill is created, bill will automatically assign those default approvers. But we do have another feature called dynamic approvals, where you can actually create approval policies based on certain criteria. And that criteria can be bill amount, line item amount, department, location, job, class, customer, vendor, employee, chart of accounts. Now, let's say we were to select vendor. It doesn't have to be just one vendor. We can say anytime a bill is coded to any of these three vendors, we're going to want Justin to be automatically assigned to review and approve those bills. But we can even take it a step further. We can say anytime a bill is coded to any of those three vendors, and if the bill is also $500 or more, then we're going to want an extra pair of eyes. So we're going to ask that the finance team is automatically assigned to those specific bills so that they can review and approve them as well. So the great thing about our dynamic approvals is that once you set those rules in place, if any of your bills meet that certain criteria, Bill will automatically start assigning the approver so that way you don't have to do it manually every time you're reviewing and creating bills. And then for those who are always on the go, we do have a mobile app that you can download on your phone. If you download the app and you enable notifications, you'll actually get a banner right across your mobile device, letting you know that you've been assigned to a bill that needs to be reviewed and approved. If you click on that banner, it'll take you directly to Bill. Now, I'm currently logged in as an approver because if you look at my to-do list, that's really all I have on my list. It's just to approve bills, right? So an approver wouldn't be getting notifications such as, hey, there's some unpaid bills, there's some denied bills that need to be fixed or overdue bills, simply because they wouldn't have permissions to take action on those items. So depending on what your role is, that is what you're going to see on your to-do list. So from here, we're going to click Approve Bills. We will be able to provide you a breakdown of each individual bill. Now, at a very high level, if this is all the information I need, swipe left to deny, swipe right to approve. We'll also give you the option of being able to click into the bill itself. From your mobile device, you'll still be able to review those attached documents. And we're also going to be providing you that notes section. So this way you can continue communicating with your team directly through Bill. Now, if everything looks great from here, we can click approve. However, let's say maybe the expense account is incorrect. We can then click deny. And anytime a bill is denied, the approver will be required to leave notes. And we're actually going to be taking those notes and we're going to be saving them right here in the notes section. But most importantly, it's also going to be reflected within the bill's audit trail. We have an audit trail pretty much tied to everything, to bills, to payments, when a vendor's created, when a chart of account is created, so that way you can always keep track of any updates that are made to those transactions. Now, when it comes time to paying those bills, we're going to go right over to our unpaid bills tab. From here, we're going to get a list of only fully approved bills. And it really is as simple as picking and choosing which bills you want to pay and then clicking review and pay. Or hey, it's Friday. Maybe we only want to make one payment run. We can select all of them at once and then click review and pay. Since we do have our money transmitter license in all 50 states, we will be able to process all of your e-payments, also known as ACH payments. We will be able to send out physical checks on your behalf, so you no longer have to write those out or have to worry about dropping those off at the post office. We're going to be taking on that responsibility. We can send out international wires in both USD and in the vendor's local currency. And then for some of those vendors that only want to get paid via credit card, we can actually send them a virtual credit card directly through Bill. But it can all be done through Bill without you having to worry about submitting any positive pay forms or any notch files to a bank. We do not use a third party to process our payments. All of our payments are processed through Bill. So if you have any questions regarding those payment details, you can always contact us directly and we will be able to assist. Right. Now, let me go ahead and go over some of our payment methods here. Here's an example of the checks that we're going to be sending out. It'll have the remittance information, top left-hand corner, company information, the vendor name. We're also going to be providing a stub along with those check payments, so that way the vendor knows exactly what they're going to be getting paid for. But then when we do send out these checks, the banking information on these checks will actually be Bill's banking information. So at no point do we ever expose yours or your client's banking information to the vendors. E-payments will be another way of sending out payments for vendors. There are a few different ways to set up vendors for e-payments. The first one is as the vendors are being created in Bill, whether it's via a sync with Sage Intacct, Business Central, or QuickBooks, because we were able to bring in the entire list of vendors. Or you can also just enter one in at a time. If you have their vendor banking information on file, you can click on the vendor name. You can click Edit Vendor. And then from here, under payment type, this is where you can enter in their routing number, you can enter in their bank account. Now, if you do go down this route for a few of your vendors, I always recommend sending them an invite. That way you can start paying them via e-payment. But down the line, if they ever need to update their banking information, they'll be able to manage that going forward. That way, that responsibility will not be on you. Another one of our newest features from this tab here is if you have your vendors flagged as 1099 vendors, we're actually going to be providing you this additional tab that's going to say tax info. Okay. Now, if you have their W-9 on file, you can simply just upload it, and then we're going to go from a W-9 missing to a W-9 in bill. But let's say you don't have their W-9 on file, you can actually send them a request. You can request their W-9 directly through bill. If you're connected with them via the payment network ID, they'll receive a notification where all they'll need to do is just click share. And as soon as you do that, you'll be able to see their W-9 under their profile on your end. If you're not connected with them via the payment network ID, as soon as you click request W-9, we're going to send them an invite. So that way they can create their own free portal account. As soon as they create it, they can click share. And then from there, you'll be able to see their W-9 on file. You can actually click view and you can view it. We are using the W-9 form, tax form, which you can save in bill. And you also have the option of downloading it if you need to. But at least this way, you don't have to worry about holding on to those paper copies. Everything will be digitally stored within bill. Other ways of setting up vendors for e-payments are, again, as those vendors are being created in bill via the sync or as we're creating them directly, we're going to see if these vendors already exist in our network. You know, we have over 7 million payees and payers within our network already. So it is possible that a lot of these vendors already have a bill account. So we'll take the vendor name, the email address, the physical address, and we'll see if we can find a potential match. So that way, when you connect with your vendor, the payment method will go from a check payment method right into an e-payment method at that very moment. But let's say maybe the vendor doesn't exist in our network. Maybe you don't have their banking information on file, and maybe you don't want to hold on to their banking information, right? You don't want to store it on your end. At that point, you can always just send them an invite via email. As soon as they receive it, they'll be prompted to enter in their own banking information that they want to use to receive their funds. They'll have full visibility into all of the payment details that they're going to be receiving through bill, so they can pretty much run their own payment reports throughout the year. We're going to be sending them payment notifications, letting them know that they've been assigned to a bill. I'm letting them know that they have been paid, and we're going to be providing them the direct deposit date of when those funds will be deposited into their bank account. So we'll definitely keep the vendors ACH up to date. But the best part of it, it's all free. It is a free portal account for your vendors. I've received one question. Does a W-9 have to be uploaded to bill? It does not. So not having a W-9 on file will not stop you from paying vendors. You'll still be able to pay those vendors. All right. International wires. Again, we do support sending those in both USD and in the vendor's local currency. So for example, this specific vendor here, they like to get paid in euros. So we enabled multi-currency in bill. And now going forward, we can always create their bills in euros. Now, when it comes time to paying the bill, we'll show you the amount in their local currency. We will be showing you the exchange rate, so that way you'll know exactly how much is going to be debited from the bank account or credit card. You can use a bank account or credit card to fund those payments. Now, these are the only payments that cannot be scheduled ahead of time. Reason being is that the exchange rate does change on a daily basis. So what we do is we lock in that rate for that day, and that's what the vendor is going to be receiving when they receive their wire. Okay. All right. Another question, how does my company's vendor's name, address, and account numbers get uploaded to bill? So it really comes down to you can either you can create one vendor at a time under the add vendor. We do give you the option of doing a manual import, right? Where you can use a CSV file to import the vendor's names, the address, and the bank account information. You can do a one-time banking information import. right? But the other option is if you are working with these accounting softwares, QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online, Xero, Sage Intacct, Oracle NetSuite, Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, is we do have an API sync integration with those accounting softwares where all you really need to do is as soon as you initiate that first sync, we're going to be bringing in that vendor's list, the vendor's address. What we won't be able to bring in is any banking information. For security purposes, we're not able to sync banking information for that vendor. So you will either need to go through each vendor, enter that banking information manually. You can do the one-time import of their banking information, or you can always just send them an invite. That way they can create their own free portal accounts if they already don't have one, where you can at that point pretty much connect with them via the payment network ID. All right. If I was able to answer those questions. All right. And the last payment method that we have here is virtual cards. Now, virtual cards, it's really a 16-digit credit card number that we're going to be sending out to vendors. And a lot of the time, the reason why a lot of these vendors are set up for virtual cards is because it's possible that these vendors actually accepted virtual cards outside of bill at one point. All right. So most likely they have some type of POS system that allows them to accept these types of payments. Right. If you notice, anytime you're entering vendors, a lot of the utility bills usually will convert right into virtual cards because they're willing to pay a percentage in order to receive their payment pretty much the same day as it's being sent out, right? But this is something that they would be receiving, an email which will contain that single-use 16-digit card number, which they can use their POS to accept the payment, and it also let them know which invoices are being paid. But a lot of the times, this is something that the vendor has accepted, not necessarily through bill, but usually outside of bill before. They've accepted virtual cards in the past. All right. And then once the payments have been created, we will be providing you a payment confirmation number, which you'll be able to use to review the details. Regardless if we're going to be sending out checks, e-payments, international wires, virtual credit cards, we are going to be showing you the progress from the time the payment is processed all the way until it's cashed for checks or deposited for e-payments. If we are going to be sending out checks on your behalf, since we are going to be using our own check stock, we're going to make sure to provide you a check number, check date, check expiration date. Our checks do remain active for 90 days. On the 91st day, if the check is not cashed, it will auto void. The funds will be returned back to the bank account or credit card that was used to fund those payments. And then the bill will actually go from a paid status right back to an unpaid status. So you can just create a new payment. You don't have to worry about recreating the bill and having to go through the approval process again. But if those checks do get cashed within those 90 days, we are going to be providing you the front and back images of those cash checks for your records. You can actually see who endorsed the check at the time that it was cashed or deposited. And then if we are going to be working with the Sage Intacct, Business Central, QuickBooks, whether it's QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop, we do support both. We will be able to sync this information over to your accounting software. Okay. And when it comes time to syncing bills and payments, we are actually going to be syncing bills and payments. So it's not just going to be journal entries. You'll be able to go into the accounting software, click on the bill, view the coding. You'll be able to click on the payment, view the payment details as well. Now, when it comes time to processing your payments, debiting the funds from the bank account, we do have two different settings. By default, we consolidate all transactions for the day. So in other words, if you were to pay 10 bills at $100 each, when you look at your bank statement, you're going to see one transaction for $1,000. Okay, so what we're going to do there in the accounting software is we're going to be creating a money out clearing account. Now, the sole purpose of this money out clearing account is so that you can see the breakdown, right, of that lump sum. So if we were to go into the money out clearing account, you'll first be able to see those individual payments from when they were first created and scheduled. Let me show you here. Here we go. Here's the payments when they were first created and scheduled. On the process date, we will then sync over that lump sum, which will then offset those individual payments and balance it out to zero. Okay, so all of this will be done via the sync. Now, the other option is we can change it to show transactions individually for each day. So now, instead of seeing one lump sum for $1,000, you will now see 10 individual debits for $100 each. Each debit will also show you which vendor was paid right on the bank statement. So now when it comes time to syncing these payments over to the accounting software, because we already know what the breakdown is just by looking at the bank statement, we're no longer going to be posting those payments to the money out clearing account. We are now going to be posting them directly to the bank register instead. Okay, so it really comes down to your preference there. If you want to consolidate transactions, if you want to show them individually, but it's not a one-time setting. You can always change it at any time. And that pretty much covers the accounts payable. Any questions or any other questions? Uh, if we're not using any of those accounting softwares here, here we go. If we're not using any of these for our API integration, we do have an import export tool that you can use here. And what you can do here is this is what the tool you'll be able to use to import your vendors list, your chart of accounts, anything that you're going to be using to code your bills. And then once your bills have been created and scheduled, and once you've created your payments, you can use the same exact tool to export all of your information from bill, right? So if we click export here, you can do an export all, or you can use export with filters where you can say, hey, I only want a list of active bills, and maybe we only want to use the bills that were created last week. There we go. And maybe we only want to list the bills of bills that are marked as paid. So this way we can create CSV files for you with that information, which then you can use to import into your accounting software or ERP system. Okay. Any other questions on the accounts payable side?
I think we're good there.
Okay. All right. Do we want to go ahead and just jump right into expend and expense?
You bet.
Okay. Sounds good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and just start off right in the uh, overview page, the company side. Here we go. So this will be the company dashboard. Now, as soon as we go through the application process, which takes usually around 5 to 10 minutes to complete, once it's completed, it takes about 1 to 2 business days for it to be reviewed. This is where you'll be able to see the your line of credit, right? Let me select another one where it actually shows that I have a little bit more. I'm still surprised I have that much. There we go. Now I look good. So here I got $10,500 assigned to me as my line of credit, which I can use to divvy out to employees, create budgets, right? If I know that I'm going to need more than that, I can always just submit a limit increase. But another great feature is that you can also add additional funds. So we can add an additional 2,000, from our account. So that way we will have, 12,500 to be able to divvy out to all of our employees if we need to, if we know we're going to be having a busy month, right? From here, this is where we can set up our automatic payments against our credit line. And you could do it weekly, bi-weekly, you could do it monthly. But one of the benefits of making your payments more frequent against your credit line is that, your multipliers for earning rewards actually increase, right? So if you're making your payments weekly, you can get much more rewards. And some of the rewards that well, all of your rewards really, you can redeem them for statement credits, you can do cash back, gift cards. You can even do travel reimbursement right through spend and expense. Okay. There we go. So as you can see, the more your more frequent payments, the higher your multipliers will be. All right. And then if we keep scrolling towards the bottom, this is where we'll be able to keep track of our credit line on a daily basis for the month. And then we'll be able to see any incomplete transactions or the most recent transactions as well. But I would say the way we want to start here is let's go ahead and jump right into the People's tab. This is where we're going to start entering all of our employees. Now we can either do a import of all of our employees at once using a CSV file, or we can just add individuals one at a time. As we're adding individuals, this is where you'll be able to select whether you want to assign them as an administrator, an auditor, a bookkeeper, or majority of your employees will most likely be members where you can assign them to budgets, right? From here, this is where you can send them an invite, so that way they can download the spend and expense application on their phone. And this is where you can also get a chance to either, if you want them to have a physical card, if you do not want them to be able to order one, or if you kind of just want to leave it up to them if they want to order one, right? It is a Visa card. It will have their name on it. Okay. One of the benefits of having their own individual card is that, anytime we're swiping right off the bat, we'll be able to see which employee is actually doing those transactions. A lot of the times when you're using kind of like a company card, it's always going to have the company name on there. So you don't know who has it at what time. And as you start swiping, you don't really know which individual is the one that's making those purchases, right? So with this way, everyone has their own card with their own name on it, and you'll be able to see exactly who's doing the spending. Other benefits of everyone having their own physical card is that, uh, let's say they're known as seasonal employees. Maybe they're not going to be working for a few months. You can always just freeze their card. You don't have to worry about collecting it or holding on to it. They can hold on to it. You can just leave them at zero, freeze their card. If some of the employees, are no longer going to be with the company, you don't have to stress over collecting the cards back. They can continue to hold on to it. You can just deactivate the card directly through Spend and Expense. Okay. All right. And let's go ahead and jump right into the budgets tab. Now, you don't have to create budgets. You can pretty much have no budget set up whatsoever. And then from there, you can, divvy funds out to the employee, or you can ask them, hey, whenever you do need funds, please put in a request of how much funds you're going to need, for your purchase, right? So you don't need to create budgets in order to be able to send funds to an employee. But one of the great things about creating funds is like this is a way for you to be able to say, hey, I only want to spend a certain amount of money on this specific conference or on this specific company party, right? So you can set a limit there. In this case, we're going to be going to a conference. Vegas sounds nice. So we're going to be going to a conference in Las Vegas. Here, this is where we can enter in some guidelines. Hey, please don't book, first class flights. Please don't book, presidential suites. When you're booking when you're setting up your itinerary. Great way just to enter in some guidelines here. Budget type, you can set it up as a reoccurring budget where it'll reset on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis. But in this case, because we're only going to be doing a one-time budget, we can select one time, which will not reset, right? We can set an expiration date. Let's say the conference is from Tuesday to Thursday. We can set an expiration date for Friday, right? So Thursday night, you can still use your card if you have funds available. You can get that last Uber ride home. You can, get that last dinner in. But as soon as Friday comes around, midnight, the budget will then expire. Even if you still have $100 left in your budget, that will expire for you. Okay, so just something to keep in mind if we do set up an expiration date for those budgets. But again, we don't need to set one up. This is where we're going to be adding the budget owners. Now, the budget owners are going to be the ones that are usually, reviewing those transactions. They're usually the first line of approvals, right? Also, if any employees are going to be requesting additional funds, they're usually the ones that are going to be reviewing those requests, right? So let's go ahead. We're going to add Adam here as our budget owner. And then members, these are going to be the ones that we're going to be assigning to our budgets. There we go. We're going to add these three. The Alex crew, right? And we're going to go ahead and click next. Now, from here, this is where we can set a target. We don't want to set a target. We can just say no. And then from here, we can just allocate as much funds as we want from our credit line, right? We can say, hey, we're going to use, $5,000. Pretty much everybody has free reign to use all of the $5,000 that they want to use. There's no limit for any of the employees, but as soon as that $5,000 limit hits, they can't use it anymore, right? Or we can say, no, do not share it with anyone, where we actually have to allocate how much we want to give them, right? But if we do want to spend a limit here and say for this specific budget, we're going to do 5,000. We can set it to where we allow overspending. Even if we get past that $5,000 marks, we can continue spending more than our limit. We can set it to where we can only go up to a buffer. We can set a buffer for, let's say, $1,000. This actually came into play once when we were booking our rooms for a conference, and for some reason they had it was like a $250 or $150 security deposit per night for our rooms. So we ended up going over our budget, but because we had that buffer, it allowed our transactions to continue going through, because we knew we were going to get those funds back. Or we can select decline charges, where as soon as we hit that limit, no more additional charges. It'll actually can't stop the transaction. Okay. We can also set up policies, right? You can create rules such as, any bills that are any transactions that are under $50, do not require a receipt, right? You can set up, transactions that are allowed or that will automatically decline. We do use credit card codes. So if we try to, swipe a card for, I believe one of them was uh, alcohol bars, or, anything that's over $10, you can set restrictions, it'll automatically decline if you were to assign that budget or that policy to that budget. Okay. So, and then if we click next, we'll get one last final view of our budget here. We can make final adjustments if we need to. But if everything looks great from here, we can go ahead and click just create budget. Okay. And let me go ahead and show you how it's going to look from the employees side here. Now, right off the bat, if they do have a physical card, this is the first thing they're going to see through their app is the actual physical card. But they also have the option of creating virtual cards. Maybe they don't want a physical card, right? You can create as many virtual cards as you like. You can create one for each one of your vendors, right? You can also move that virtual card to your Apple Wallet, right? So if it's one of those tap and charge places, you can definitely do that as well. But let's say, we're out for a conference, we're staying at the Marriott, and we hand the Marriott our card, and they right off the bat they swipe our card. At that very moment, we're going to get a notification that we have an incomplete transaction. Yeah. So what I need to do, the first thing I need to do is I need to add my receipt, if that's one of the rules on that policy, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add my receipt. I can either take a picture of it, or I can go to my library. A lot of these times, hotels will usually send you an email. So what I do is I use that PDF as my receipt, or I'll take a screenshot of it as well. But in this case, we'll just take a picture. And then the next step would be then to code the transaction, right? Now you are able to bring in, you can import your list of expenses, or if you're working one of the accounting softwares that we sync with, we can sync in your expense accounts as well. And then from there, you can say, well, out of all of these expenses, I only want maybe 10 to be part of that specific budget. So that way the employee doesn't have to go through every single expense account, right? So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and select my travel expense here, and I'm going to click done. As soon as I do that, as you can see, my transaction has now been completed. So now my budget owner can actually just go right into spend and expense. They can go under transactions. And then from here, this is where they'll be able to see that card, that swipe, right? That transaction. They can actually see the receipt as well. Everything's done in real time. This way we don't have to wait till, the end of the week or until I get back from that conference to upload my receipts, my expense reports. As we're swiping, we'll be able to upload that information right into spend and expense. Now, another great thing with spend and expense is that you don't have to assign, you don't have to assign users to or employees to just one budget. You can actually assign them to multiple budgets. This specific employee is assigned to 4 different budgets: sales, travel, recurring software, employee related. Recurring software is grayed out simply because there are no funds available. So it really comes down to which budget you have selected at the time of that swipe. That's where we're going to be debiting the funds from that specific budget. Now, let's say we are going to go see a client out in LA. We're at the airport. We currently have $8.51. So if we even try to buy a bottle of water, which nowadays runs for like $15, we know our transaction is going to decline, right? So what we can do here is we can request funds, and we're going to be requesting $200 because we're going to go, there we go, because we're going to go on a day trip to LA to visit a client. I'm going to put in my request. There we go. As soon as I send that request, my budget owner will then review it. If they approve it, within a matter of seconds, my budget will now be updated with those additional $200. However, the budget owner can also say, hey, I don't think you need $200. I'm only going to send you $100. If you need additional funds, please put in another request. All right. Other features within spend and expense is we do support reimbursements. So if you're somewhere where they don't accept card, they accept maybe cash only, you can submit your out-of-pocket reimbursements. If you need to be reimbursed on your mileage, we actually integrate with Google Maps, right? So you can enter in your starting address, your end address. We'll calculate those miles for you. You can select your budget that you want to use, code the transaction as well, and then from here you can click request. Now, one of our great features from Spend and Expense is that the employee can actually link their bank account through Spend and Expense. So as soon as that transaction gets approved, we can actually send an ACH reimbursement directly to that employee's bank account. So we don't have to wait until payroll comes around. And then the last thing here, under companies, this is probably one of my favorite tabs, is our inside reports. You can run, your spend on a monthly basis. Down here, you can run reports on all of your budgets all across the board. Merchants, who are we spending the most money on, right? I always thought Amazon was leading the pack here, but it looks like people are ready to book their flights. And probably the best one, who's doing most of the spending, right? Out of all of the employees using the Spend and Expense. But in the end, you can pretty much run reports on whatever you like, right? Whatever you have your transactions coded, whether it's customers, descriptions, and anything that you have your coded, you can run custom reports directly through Spend and Expense. And that pretty much covers it. Any questions, Brendan? Anything that I miss?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you for walking through everything, so.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Sep. This is Tim. Would you just talk briefly about the integration, how Spend and Expense integrates to the ERP as well?
Yeah, absolutely. My apologies. So we do have, as same with Bill, we do have sync integrations with those main accounting softwares: QuickBooks Desktop, Sage Intacct, Oracle NetSuite, QuickBooks Online, where we can sync this information over to your accounting software. But if we're not working with these accounting softwares here, we can go under transactions, and you can always export, download the information, create CSV files, which then you can use to import into your ERP system. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question.
I don't see any other questions in the Q&A or in the chat. So with that, I'll just thank you both very much for joining us. Thanks to our clients who joined and for the good questions. And in the coming days, you'll see an email from Maynard that has a link if you care to watch this video which we've made, or if you'd like to show it to other people in your organization. Thanks again for your time. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.